And the lady looked at me and told me, "You're going to marry a pastor." And I think she was considered a prophet. Hello, everyone. Shanaecartwright, success strategist. Thank you so much for watching. Today, I wanted to talk with you all about what it's like being a first lady. If you're interested in knowing my thoughts about what it's like being the wife of a pastor, keep watching. All right, everyone. Again, thank you so much for watching. And if you've been watching any of my videos for any amount of time, I want to encourage you to go ahead and like this video. Go on ahead and share this video, and also comment down below. I'm going to leave a question down below. If you would just look at that first question so that we can be a community of engagement, I would really, really appreciate it. Also, if you have not already, go on ahead and subscribe, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can always get my videos when they come out. Again, I wanted to talk with you about what it's like being a first lady. If you have specific questions for me about what it's like being a first lady, please comment down below. Let me preface my statement by saying this. It was never in my psyche or my thought process to be a minister's wife or a pastor's wife. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying I didn't think about it. What I'm saying is it was not something that I was actively pursuing. I have come to understand that there are people, women, who are actively trying to marry a pastor. That was not my intent. That was never my motivation, my intent, my intentions, or my desire. I was talking with a lady, and the lady looked at me and told me, "You're going to marry a pastor." And I think she was considered a prophet. Now, at that time, I think I was about 14 or 15 years old. So I'm not thinking about whatever she said. I just remember hearing that and I kind of shrugged it off. So years later, fast forward, when I met my now husband, I wasn't even interested. How we met, he was preaching at a church that I was interning at. And he expressed interest through the pastor who I was under for my internship for seminary. And at the time, I turned it down. I was not interested. Fast forward, here we are today. So we see that changed. Being a first lady, I do not take it lightly. I do not take it lightly at all. I feel like a woman who is within the position of and I say position because it is a position. It is a position. And I don't believe that anyone should idolize the first lady. I don't. I think at one point, I think people have this ideology that a first lady is put on this pedestal, that she's wined and dined and she's catered to. And let me tell you right now, what I have experienced in the church has been far from that. People are nice, they are cordial, but you have a couple of extremes. You have people who can be very nice, loving, generous, and caring, and you feel it. You feel it from the heart. Their intentions are pure, they're good. They'll ask if you need anything. I feel in my spirit that there are people who are praying for me. And then on the other hand, you have people who are cold-blooded, people who are just mean. And it might be wrong for me to say this, but you just have people who are very mean. There are some heart issues going on. And I just thank God, if I did not have a prayer life the way that I have now, the way my life is set up, if I did not have the prayer life that I do now, then I think what would happen is that I would be such in my flesh, moving and operating, that I would not be a great representative for the kingdom of God concerning wifely duties, a response from as a godly woman, if I did not have a relationship with God. And I think you do see that with some women who they look for that notoriety, that recognition, the position, the prestige, or the glamour that is associated with being a first lady. And it is possible that because they're looking for this glamour, that yes, they receive that, but they don't understand the burden that comes along with that. And that burden that I feel like for me, it's a blessing as well. And what I mean by that is I get to cover my husband in prayer. And I don't take that lightly. And just like I don't take the position of being a first lady lightly, I don't take it lightly that I get to cover my husband in prayer. And he in turn gets to cover me. But as a woman of faith, a woman of God, I get to cover my husband in prayer. I see him when he's preparing the meat for the sermonic preparation. I see all of that behind the scenes, and it's honorable to know that he is preparing for Sunday. Now, my perspective is a little bit different because I was already in ministry when I met my husband. So I think I was already prepared mentally and equipped and understanding of what the sacrifice it was. And I think that's one of the things that people don't realize and women don't realize. Maybe the church as a whole doesn't realize, but women don't realize it is a sacrifice. It is a sacrifice. And when I met my husband, he was in ministry, and then God had called him to lead or start a church. So he had to start a church plant. And then on top of that, he ended up being called to another church. So he is working in two churches simultaneously. He's working in two churches. And here we are. We're both in ministry, and I'm having to maneuver to understand what it is to be a wife and a first lady. That is a double whammy. So I'm understanding who I am, and then I'm understanding who I am in the role of a minister and a first lady. And then I'm I'm understanding how it is to relate to people. I'm understanding what it's like to bear with people and one another. I'm understanding what it's like to pray for people who I know don't like me, to show up at funerals, to go to housewarmings and pray for people. I'm understanding what it's like to make hospital visits with people as a minister and a wife of a pastor. It has been humbling, it's been eye-opening, it's been life-giving. And I would tell anyone who is considering, or I would say this, because there are women who, and I know this to be true, and it's unfortunate, there are women who are actively seeking to be married with a man who is in ministry. There's something about power that women are drawn to. And this is what I would tell that individual, that woman: be careful. Be careful, because you're playing with fire, and you're seeking to be connected with someone for the wrong reasons. And when you do that, you're going to get more than you bargained for. So while you're looking for position and prestige, and you're thinking that, oh, I'm going to be taken care of, and this, that, and the third, you may to an extent, but you better make sure that what you are seeking and looking for, that you are prepared physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because you're going to be tested on every hand. On each of those levels, you're going to be tested. You're going to be tested spiritually. There is going to be somebody who is going to cut their eye at you or say something out the way. And are you going to take it? Are you going to smile and say, God bless you? Are you going to keep your mouth closed? Because what happens is, when you go into this mindset of, I want to be a first lady, you have to understand that you're representing God first. You're representing yourself as a woman of God, and you're representing your husband. Only this time, as you are in this position, so to speak, you're representing God first, you're representing your husband, and then it's about you. Because everything that you do is going to be scrutinized and put under a magnifying glass. And of course, every context is different. Every situation is going to be different. There are some churches that will just gather around their first lady, and they love on them, and they pour out, and just they shower them, adore them, spoil them. And then you have those other extremes where you have those churches where they don't want anything to do with the first lady. She doesn't even exist. I've seen it for myself, where she does not exist. She is treated like caca. people will act like she's nothing. And it, it's very unfortunate. I've seen it. I've seen it done. I've seen how people can respond to people. I have people in my connections who have experienced and have shared with me what they have experienced with as being a first lady, some of the things that they've experienced from other women even. And I think for me, I had to stand my ground and, so to speak, prove myself. And there was one time I had to really take a step back and realize that I don't need to prove myself, that who I am is who God has called me to be, and God is going to fight my battles. And there are times where I just need to be quiet and I don't need to say anything. And then there are times where God will speak to my husband about certain situations. But all in all, when you understand that at the end of the day, it's all about ministry and it's not about you, then you understand how your presence and your position, you understand where you fit within your congregation, within your church, within ministry. There was a time where, I guess because of me looking young, I questioned how I would be received. Would people respect me? And for the most part, I would say that people are respectful. They are, for the most part. There are those hidden, every other person, those few in between individuals who, they're not feeling you. And I realized, and I learned this from chaplaincy, I learned this from ministry, CPE, clinical pastoral education. What I understand is that when anybody has an issue with you, it has more to do with them than it does to do with you. And if you sit there and you try to investigate and try to figure out, well, why don't they like me? And why is this? And why am I dealing with this? You will run yourself ragged trying to figure it out. You don't know what's going on in that person's head. It does not matter. You're going to have to pray for them and let it go. Because at the end of the day, again, you're there to be a support to your husband. Number one, you're there as a woman of God. You're supporting him. You're being actively involved in the ministry. And you're being an example for other women. There are women who are going to look up to you, and every move you make, how you dress, how you eat, how you speak, how you interact with people, whether they are 2 or 202, people are looking at you and they're taking notes and they're trying to figure out, well, how did she get to marry a pastor? Well, why is she here? And why is this? And it's not for you to worry about what they think. It's for you to show up, stand up, and be who God called you to be within that time and in that appointed time, and to be yourself. And I think that's one of the hardest things, because people have these assumptions about who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to look like, how you're supposed to wear your hair. Oh, when I present myself, what you see, the Spirit of the Lord is what you see. That's what I hope that you see. People are looking at how you dress, how you respond, how you act. And I want people to see God's image. I want people to see God's heart within me. I want people to hear kindness and love and patience. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to always get it right and I'm going to be perfect, even as a minister, but I know how to pause. I know how to say, well, let me get back to you. I know when to address things. I know how to pull people to the side. And it is a character developing, it's a character developing field. It is. Because if your character is shaky, if you're still dealing with some things concerning attitude, concerning effective communication, listening, being present, then it may be tough for you. But there are ways that you can overcome that by going to the Lord, by praying and just asking God for help. Asking God for help to show you how to be present and actively involved in the lives of your church community and the family. And then sometimes you're going to have to take breaks. You're going to have to take a step back. But if you can't be supportive of your husband, and let me say this, there are women, I understand, there are women who are pretty much behind the scenes. Now, again, as I've already stated, I came from a different background when I met my husband. So I was already actively involved in church, actively involved in community events, different things that was going on. I wanted to be involved, social engagements, volunteerism. I was volunteering at the food bank at one time. So different things that I was doing, just being actively involved within my community. I was speaking, I was preaching. And then when I met him, areas of my life, I continued, but then I had to pull back. And the same thing with being the wife of a minister. In order to find yourself within that role, you're still authentically you. You're still going to show up and be Shanae. You're still going to show up and be who God has called you to be, a woman of God, fearfully and wonderfully made, created in his image. But then there are areas where you're going to have to take a step back and see, okay, God, how would you have me to move in this aspect? How would you have me to respond? Because again, there are different levels and different churches and different contexts for how people expect you to show up. Whereas some church may say, well, I want you to be on the back burner. We don't want to hear from you. We don't want you to say nothing. And then you have another church that's like, first lady, first lady, first lady, first lady. They want you involved in everything. And honestly, that's a good thing when they want you involved, because that means they value your presence. They understand family and the archetype that God created for there to be a family unit, an example of a family unit, a man and a woman and their children. And people honor that, and they see, well, if this is the example that God has given us, that we want to follow this example as they follow Christ, because I don't want anybody to follow me. I want people to follow me as I am following Christ, as I'm reading the word, as I'm seeking his face, as I'm praying. And one thing that you can know about me, I am going to be led by prayer, and I'm going to be led by pure intentions. I will never steer anyone wrong, have them do anything that is outside of the will of God purposely or for the sake of ill will or malice. That is not in my heart. And that's why, again, I talk about character, that as a woman of God, you have to have a specific, as a woman of God, as a first lady, your mindset has to be about the people. It's not about you. Like, yes, you have this image to uphold. Yes, people are looking at you, all eyes are on you. I've heard the example of being in a fishbowl. So it's like you're this little goldfish and everybody is circling around you, or you're circling around the goldfish and then they're circling around you. Or you're circling around the bowl and then they're circling around you on the outside. It does appear that way sometimes. But I think if you're keeping your hand in God's hand and you're following the Spirit of the Lord, you don't have anything to worry about. God is going to show up for you, and he's going to show up in a tremendous and awesome way. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And if you enjoyed listening to this, I want you to make a comment below. Let me know are you connected to someone who is a preacher's wife? I don't like that term. Or a leading lady. Maybe I should say leading lady. A lot of people now are saying leading lady versus first lady, because they'll say there's no second lady, third lady, fourth lady. There's a leading lady, and that's it. However you want to say it. But I will say this, that it definitely takes a praying woman, a woman who is going to see people as God sees them and look at their hearts and know that you're going to have situations where people are hurting and they need to be healed. People are hurting and they may need a touch on the shoulder. People are hurting and they may need a phone call. People are looking to see you, hear your voice, and they want to know that you exemplify a woman of God. All right. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you again so much for watching. Again, my name is Shanaecartwright, success strategist. And always remember that a mind change, you see this book? A mind change equals a life change. All right. I'll talk with you later.